House Speaker Joe McCorkadale took a tough stand today, warning the House members that the lower chamber would stay on the business of the day, consideration of the education budget till the House finished with it. The only other motion he said he would recognize would be one to adjourn while the education budget was before the House. Representative Hugh Merrill also had a warning for the House that the education budget has a balance of only $17.8 million, and House Rule 21A requires that it have a $20 million cushion. That was the cue to start trimming, but the lawmakers did not heed the warning as a list of more than 40 amendments began to surface. The Speaker of the House agreed it was putting the budget in jeopardy.
It definitely is, George. Of course, we've had this occur in the past, and some of us have been the bad guys, and we've attempted to clean it up and to get it back in balance and to be responsible, because I think that's why we are serving up here, to be responsible. And of course, this time we're not going to make any effort. I'm not, and the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Merrill, says he isn't. And it's just regrettable that we reached to this point in amending the bill, but at least we need to get this instrument passed in the House, because this is probably the most important issue we have now, is to get this money, get this appropriation bill passed for education in this state.
One amendment of note that was turned back was one by Representative Sonny Callahan that would have added $19 million to the budget and would have appropriated money to school systems on enrollment rather than daily average attendance. The lid bill caught the attention of the Senate. Senator Oscar Ray Peden of Florence took out after the Alabama Farm Bureau Federation, accusing it of reneging on an agreement worked out last Tuesday to get the bill passed in the Senate. Peden said the bill returned to the House is the bill, or there will be no bill, lid bill, at all.
And I don't care whether the management of Farm Bureau likes it, I don't care whether John Doyle likes it, or I don't care whether anybody else likes it. But I'll tell you this, if they will make an agreement, then we ought to hold them to it. And as far as I'm concerned, until they are ready to back up what they agreed to, every bill that they bring on this hill, as long as I'm up here, is dead. D-E-A-D, underlined and exclamation point.
The House is expected to take up the lid bill dispute Thursday and decide whether to concur with the Senate and its amendment, diverting TVA money from the state's general fund to 16 North Alabama counties. From the state legislature, George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
Yes, you want to know how I learned to make them, don't you?
How did you?
Well, back during Charlotte Cornelius' father was in Washington.
I didn't know that.
If you know how to do it. But I never had any problem doing this.
Just roll it up and fold it
Yeah,
up.
just
and
roll
there you
them
go.
up and just fold them over like that. And living in Geneva. And of course, when I moved to town, the first thing I would do was join the Baptist church. Second thing I'd do is join the garden club. Third thing I'd do is join the bridge club. First I went to a bridge party, and the lady served hot tamales. And I went to her and asked her about buying some for my party. And she said, "Oh, Ruby, you can't afford that. You all are too poor. There's no way you could afford them." Said, I'll teach you how to make them, and I'll help you make them for your party if you'll promise me one thing, that you'll never tell anybody the recipe. And to this day, this is more than I've ever told anybody. Well, it's just been fabulous. I was born in a political family. I elected my brother governor twice, and I take most of the credit. I mean, personally, because I'm the one that gave him his money, and I'm the one that had the go-get, and my mother said she was a great woman. She said, Ruby, when his wife died, said, if you don't go to Coleman and live with him, he'll never be governor of Alabama. You can make him governor, and I did twice.
And that's what you did.
And if he'd listened to me the third time, he'd been governor the third time, but he didn't. And in view of the fact that he didn't, I said, if you can't beat him, join him. So I just married my daughter off to George. You can't stand, she'll kill me for saying that.
There was also a rumor, too, that with her settlement with George, that, what was that, $75,000 or something like that. But in addition to that, that there was an under-the-table amount of money that she was getting.
Oh, they tell all kinds of stories.
Oh,
What she
no,
got
there,
was
of
a
course, that was
pittance,
but is
just
that-
pittance. It's pitiful. What she got is disgraceful. absolutely disgraceful.
And there was nothing in addition to
And that lot that she, people say, he gave her that lot. She bought it and paid for it with her own money. She bought all of her clothes when she was married to him, and she paid her children's way. And he said she was lucky to have a table to put her feet on and a roof over her head. He told me that, and he meant it.
When did he say that?
He said that to me when he was living with Cornelia.
That side isn't a side of George Wallace that many people ever see.
No, there's a heck of a lot of them that people don't ever see. And he's been good in a way, but not really, nothing. We're not going any further into that.
How does it feel to be the mother of a very famous daughter?
Well, you know, I love Cornelia. I have a son, too, so I don't leave him out. But Cornelia, from the day she was born, when she was born, Dr. Hayes, I said, Dr. Hayes, I had her at home in the bed that I was born in, old-fashioned way, in the arbor, in the front bedroom, company bedroom. And I said, Dr. Hayes, is the baby all right? He said, oh, my Lord, the most beautiful child I've ever delivered. Says she has complexion. No, she said her hair is black as a crow's with 1,000,000 ringlets. Her complexion is fair as a lily, and her eyes are blue as the sky.
Cornelia stayed with you part of the time when she and Governor Wallace were in the process of getting a divorce. What was her feeling then, and what was your feeling as a mother?
Well, I felt so sorry for her. She was so upset, you know. She didn't want a divorce, you know. George is the one that wanted the divorce. And it really upset her. It just broke her up. And she hadn't gotten over it yet. But she's doing better. She's skiing now, and that's been Colorado. Isn't that great? It's the first break. She said it's the first time she's had a chance to, and she was invited out to ski. So I'm real excited about it.
And now she has a press agent, and so there's some things that he'll be planning for her.
Yeah, but somebody else wants to do things even bigger than... Yeah, she has press agents, so I hope something will come through for her soon.
Is there anything you can tell us about that may be in the plans?
Let me tell you something. I carried Cornelia to Hollywood for her 11th birthday present. I bought her first set of luggage, and when she was 11 years old, I carried her out to Hollywood, and she was supposed to have been one of the first TV stars. So we got out there, and she missed Charles, her brother, and she just wanted to come home. My brother Carl left her his money when he was killed on Luzard, you know, in World War II. He left his money for me to educate Cornelia for show business. He said, one day her name will be in headlines, so I'm looking for it.
Well, Cornelia has had a varied career because she's played the guitar and she sang and she traveled with a country music group.
Right. But God gave
skiing
her,
at Cypress
she got that.
Gardens.
My father was a great violinist. My mother played the organ, the piano, and I used to sing. Oh, and there's something else I did. I sang in the choir. That's the first thing I did. When I joined that Baptist church, I got right in the choir. So she gets it naturally. She inherited it.
What are your plans? You're living here in Montgomery now. Will you stay here?
I love Montgomery, and I imagine I will. I don't see how I could leave it. I love Elba, too, and I love it so much when I die, I want to be buried down there, but I have a dog, so I want to be buried alive down there. They won't ever let me back in Elba with them. And my brother's the mayor. I'll never make it back to Elba. You reckon I will? And when I die, I don't want this tear shed over me because I've had much too beautiful life than anybody, because I've been happy and lived it up all my life, and I've had some kind of life. And people my age just get out and be with people and don't stay at home and wallow in self-pity. Get out and enjoy life and go places and do things and just live it up and be a Christian while you're doing it.
property tax lid bill is in jeopardy and could be killed in this session unless there is further agreement between the House and the Senate. The House today rejected the amendments, and the bill's sponsor, Representative Rick Manley, was successful in a motion to have it and 3 other property tax companion measures sent to a House conference committee, and a 3-member committee was selected.
The House conferees appointed by the Speaker of the House are Representative Phil Kelly of Marshall County, Representative Joe Carruthers of Houston County, and myself, Rick Manley, from Marengo County. As the Senate receives the message from the House, and if they non-concur and the Lieutenant Governor appoints a conference committee from the Senate, then the 3 conferees from the House will get in touch with the 3 conferees from the Senate and get together with them at a convenient time as soon as possible and discuss our differences and begin to see if we can resolve any of the differences between the 2 houses.
The Senate, for the moment, has refused to go along with the House and has given the lower chamber till next Tuesday to pass what is the center of attention, the TVA bill. That would give 60 North Alabama counties served by TVA a portion of fees it pays to the state in lieu of property taxes. Here is some of the dialogue which preceded the sending of the lid bill package to a conference committee.
I'll be glad to tell you what I've agreed, what it was offered to me to do, and I said I would do this, and I assume they're going to agree to it. I mean, they're the ones that said they would. That is that we go on and pass these 4 bills. They stop the talk on them. We pass these 4 bills and let them go to Congress.
First of all, House Bill 373, which
We're
is
not,
no,
now, Mr. Grill, let's don't add anything. My agreement, there's a special order coming out of the Rules Committee. You were going to...
The delaying tactics out of the way, orchestrated by representatives from the TVA counties, the House found itself dealing with uncontested local legislation. The city of Montgomery's annexation plan would have been ready for legislative approval next Tuesday, but it still lacks the signature of 1 senator. Senators Wendell Mitchell and Terry Powell signed the annexation bill today, but the district's 3rd senator, Fred Jones, says he wants to read the proposals. Jones said there is still a lot of time before final approval. He said he needs to read a lot of measures that have local application. A resolution adopted by the Senate today will require that all constitutional amendments passed in this session must be voted on September the 26th. From the state legislature, George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
Now let's talk about Farm Bureau a little bit. I think they ought to be talked about, and I'm going to try to spread the grain right down to where the calves can get to it. Now here's a group of folks that stood back there with their man in the Senate that brought this bill up over here, Dick Owen. We were in conference with Dick the whole time back there, and Dick was talking to Farm Bureau time and time again, and a deal was cut. With Farm Bureau's understanding of what was in it. It'd have never come on this floor if they hadn't known what was in it. I've got that much confidence in Dick Owens, and I think every other senator here would have. They knew what was in it, and they were agreeable to it coming on the floor. And 5 minutes later, they walked across that rotunda and went over to the House and started battling it. Now, I want to address these remarks to the people at North Alabama, in the TVA territory. I want you to know that the main obstacle that stands in the way of us receiving the TVA money and a good lid bill is Farm Bureau. Now, they are the main obstacle to keep this bill from passing here and now. And all they've got to do is go over in that chamber and just crook their little finger. And I'll guarantee you that something will start happening and the bill will go on and pass over there today. And I know it and you know it. But if we don't get a lid bill, and if TVA doesn't get the money, the territory up there that the money belongs to doesn't get it, then I want you to put it where it belongs, and that's at the footsteps, at the doorstep of Farm Bureau.
Well, it's no secret that Farm Bureau has long supported the lid bill and the principle of putting a ceiling on the amount of increase of ad valorem taxes in New Orleans County, an increase of 20%, and that's reasonable, and we still are in that position. And we hope that the legislature will give the people an opportunity to vote on this constitutional amendment. There is some discussion now with respect to the status of the lid bill legislation. It's been passed by the House and passed by the Senate, and the TVA amendment, revenue amendment, has been attached to it in the Senate. I'm hopeful that this can be resolved and that the people can look at this issue objectively. The House indicates that it will pass an identical bill to that which has an identical separate bill to that which has been passed in the Senate and send it over to the Senate to look at. And I hope the Senate will look at it. The House voted to non-concur today in the Senate-passed bill. I feel like the measure can be resolved and let the people look at it objectively and judge the two issues objectively. The Farm Bureau has no policy position on the TVA revenue measure. And so we're in no position to either be for or against it or to be trading on the issue.
Bill, the controversy centered around the clause, and it was reported in the newspaper, any physical contact with a person's clothed buttocks. Now that same phrase is found in 3 previous acts that the legislature has passed, and there's been no criticism of that particular phrase prior to this time.
Do you see any possible amendments?
Yes, sir, I can foresee an amendment to withdraw that language. Of course, in addition to that, to physical contact with the clothed buttocks, it would also have to be for the purpose of sexual gratification or perversion, and it would also have to be patently offensive, so I can't see any problem with a mass witch hunt.
Come on! Get back! Get back!
To the commission. Oh, yes, sir. Oh, yes, we think.
You actually see the house.
Contract and.
We are receiving some shipments of coal, and we think within a couple of weeks we'll be out of the real danger zone. And we didn't want to be in a position of having our coal supplies drop below the 40-day level here, say this week, and have to implement some of the mandatory features of Phase 2. We've drawn on our reservoirs pretty heavily, and we need to begin to start filling them up. We're getting some complaints, as you would understand, from some of our friends who are particularly the fishermen, and we sympathize with them. We'd like to get our reservoirs as soon as we can back up to normal levels, and we will, and hopefully we'll have some spring rains that will help us do this.
Well, I would imagine it would probably take approximately 2 weeks before we could expect what we call normal deliveries of coal. And if we can continue to build on our stockpile, then I would doubt very seriously if we'll be able to get up to 3 million tons by the start of summer. So it'll be a real effort to get over the summer burn. It may be this fall before we actually are able to bring our stocks up to where we'd like to have them.
The trustees voted unanimously to abolish a committee formed to investigate and review grievance procedures at ASU. That committee was comprised of board members, faculty members, as well as students. But the board felt that committee was too limited, so a new committee was formed, this time made up of 3 trustees only. The committee will examine the case of Dr. Hardy, who has been critical of ASU President Dr. Levi Watkins in the past. Dr. Hardy has complained because he has been turned down on his request for a full 12-month contract instead of his current 9-month contract. Hardy has been a professor at ASU for 40 years. After the board had acted, he said he was disappointed.
I was hopeful that, at least we'd get it all cleared up now.
You think that with this difference in committees that you may be able to get rectified soon?
Well, I think we got some good men on there who will probably take care of it in the manner in which it should be.
You said that you thought this was a personal vendetta, not only against you, but against others as well. Do you have any idea why?
Well, because, the chief administrator is in a position to, do what he wants to do about it. And There's nobody to tell him not to. Of course, he got a board now, you know. Of course, he can have something to say about it.
Well, as far as the president's office is concerned, and as far as Levi Watkins in his individual and official capacity as president, there has been no personal vendetta. That's a direct answer. That's what it is. You know, the president can't afford to get into that kind of thing. He has a responsibility, reputation, the integrity of the university.
Watkins added he was pleased with the formation of a new committee, saying he felt the trustees could be considered, quote, the court of last appeal. The committee met briefly with Dr. Hardy after the meeting. All three members expressed the desire to settle the issue as quickly and fairly as possible. The committee will report back to the full board at its annual meeting in May. Among the observers at the meeting were members of the Coalition of Concerned Alumni and Friends. The coalition has been very critical of Dr. Watkins' administration of the school. They had hoped to speak before the entire board, but were unable to do so. They were given a chance to speak informally to the three members of the new committee. Appeals by the coalition members were emotional at times. The primary objective was to get the board to do something to improve the current conditions. It was noted that many faculty members were dissatisfied with the Watkins administration, but were afraid to talk about it for fear of losing their jobs. Committee members said new attempts will be made to talk with faculty members, although it's not known what, if any, action can be taken. This is Dave Rickey, WSFA TV News reporting.
We passed out the pretrial diversion bill, which of course is not a new bill. This program has been in operation in Montgomery County for 2 years, but it expires this year. And this bill just simply makes it a permanent program. If you remember 2 years ago, we passed it on a trial basis, and it has worked out extremely well. All the people in the courthouse, down the judges and the district attorney and everybody thinks that it has worked real well. And now we're making it permanently in Montgomery County. That's a pretrial diversion bill. The other ones that we passed out of here, and this one was unanimous. In fact, there was agreement between the firefighter and the mayor of Montgomery, and that was this mutual time agreement, you know, for Montgomery County, Montgomery City firefighters, and it passed out unanimous. Then the third one that we passed out was a bill which would create the office of a grand jury reporter. The district attorney says that the grand jury in Montgomery County now is extremely busy, as you know, and they do need a reporter, and this will allow them to pay for a grand jury reporter.
What about the legislation that was drafted to increase the mayor's salary?
Okay, now there was a lot of misunderstanding about that bill. What the bill did, it didn't say that the legislature would increase the mayor's salary. It allowed the city council to increase the mayor's salary to $40,000. There was some question over that, and many of the committee members were not satisfied with it, and they wanted to carry it over and take a closer look at it and give the city council a chance to voice their opinion on it before we consider it.
George, I have sent, as of this afternoon, a telegram to the Secretary of the Air Force, who has jurisdiction over matters such as Maxwell and the effects it has on manpower changes and such like, expressing the concern of the constituents in Montgomery and surrounding area about this recent action that was taken. Now, my concern is, and others I've talked to, is that we don't want this to be a first step in downgrading this fine base. You know, Maxwell means so much to us militarily, economically, and just from a good citizenship standpoint. And I know when I worked in Washington with Senator Allen that the Pentagon had a lot to say about these matters, and I have directed a personal telegram to the Secretary asking him for a full report disclosing all the facts, and when I get it, I intend to share it with the authorities in Montgomery as well as all the citizens of this area.
It appears to have been a pretty good year for narcotics agents around the state. That was evident as about $1.6 million worth of marijuana, amphetamines, barbiturates, some cocaine, and some heroin was purposely burned to the landfill. The drugs were confiscated in numerous busts around the state by agents of the Public Safety Department Narcotics Unit, the Diversion Investigation Unit, and the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board. The event was witnessed by several of the public safety officers, including the department director, Colonel E.C. Dothert. About 20 boxes of the illegal drugs were emptied out, the contents spread out in a hole dug specifically for the purpose. Diesel fuel was poured over the entire pile, and the firemen started the blaze.
We can do it right over.
The burning actually served a dual purpose. First, the narcotics had to be destroyed for obvious reasons, but the event was also an appeal for support of a bill in the legislature giving state narcotics investigators the authority to obtain and execute search warrants in drug cases. That bill has been introduced in the state Senate by Senators U.W. Clement and Oscar Ray Peden. Colonel Dothard said the right tools at the right time in the right place will be the only way to stop the growing drug problem. And he added the search warrant provision in the new bill is one of the right tools. This is Dave Rickey, WSFA TV News, reporting from the city landfill.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, the House several weeks ago, the Talladega legislature, we're going to ask you at this time if you'll go to your desk and vote on the machine if you plan to come. We don't know how many tickets and how many lunches. Mr. Speaker, we'll ask you to unlock the machine so we can get this in. The gentleman from Talladega, what first gentleman believe House resolution, Mr. Speaker? Well, this finish this before the House. House Bill 462, labeled reporting by the judiciary. 1044. Number 972.
I'll tell you something else, Tommy. About as badly as
Number 994.
On Senate Bill 509, Mr. Bank get out and provide for all probate judges.
And it's going to have some help to get it through here. And I know that several of us have been talking about it the last 24 hours. Mr. Chairman, I'd ask him to carry it over one legislative day.
If you carry it over temporarily, the sponsor turns didn't work out great for him to carry it over one.
This step is not to the best interests of Maxwell and our university, and we feel that it'd be best to continue to operate our university as a separate command and not to merge it in with the Air Training Command, because there it would more or less be gobbled up by a much larger command. So the Alabama delegation is going to call on the Air Force to postpone this consolidation until a full study can be made of the advisability of taking this step. And just tonight I was talking here to Maxwell with Congressman Bill Dickinson. He shares that opinion, and Monday we're going to call on the entire Alabama delegation to put our joint shoulders to the wheel to try to keep this from being done. They say it's going to have very little effect on the operation here, and possibly that's so, but I'd feel much more comfortable if the Air University and Gunter would stay as a separate command rather than being merged in with the Air Training Command.
What kind of detrimental effect could you see this having on the city of Montgomery?
Well, I don't really feel it's going to be a great deal of cutback in personnel if it's allowed to go through. But I'm not resigned to it going through. I think there's a good possibility that we can keep the Air University as a separate command. Certainly we're going to work toward that end.
I think it's another step to reduce the acreage of the major commodities in this country, and therefore you reduce the supply, and this has an upward pressure on prices, and I believe this, of course, is in reaction to what we've seen a lot of in the press, of farmer pressure to raise the prices of farm commodities for 1978. It's not really a new plan. It's some administrative decisions that were available to the Secretary of Agriculture under the 1977 Food and Agriculture Act. My understanding is that they will offer payments to farmers for setting aside part of their 1978 acreage. For each acre of cotton that you plant, you must idle 1 or 10% this much land. In other words, for 10 acres of cotton planted, you would need to idle 1 acre. For idling this 1 acre, you would be paid a direct government payment. The payment, of course, is to provide an incentive for farmers to take more acres out of production. When you look at January planting intentions report, we were going to plant about 2.9 million acres of cotton, corn, and soybeans in Alabama, and this is about the same amount they planted last year. This would indicate that they were not participating in the existing set-aside programs, and the new announcement by the Secretary is to provide a cash payment for setting aside land and reducing acreage.
Do you expect the Alabama farmers will cut back their acreage because of this new set-aside provision?
Well, it's almost certain that we will have some participation in the program when you offer the cash payments. I think at this time it'd be a little premature to estimate how many acres of cotton or corn would go into set-aside. I feel that what Alabama does will not be very influential on prices from a national scale. I think the thing to do is watch what happens in the Midwest and see to what extent the farmers in the Corn Belt section of this country participate in this program, and then what cross effects it may have on soybean acreage. These are the big things that I will be watching over the next few weeks.